parents, I would implore you, get your kids to the activities. Put them, whatever it takes, make it happen. Don't take light those things that your church puts together, because they are for a purpose. It's not just a time filler. It's not. God has used those things in a special mighty way. He's used them in my life. Obviously, you've heard He used them in David's life. And I can tell you, young person after young person, that God has used those times for good. You look at history, a lot of revivals stem from young people starting a prayer meeting and getting on fire. And God just taking that and running with it and doing some amazing and mighty things. Young people can light a church on fire. They really can. And it's exciting, it's fun, and we really enjoy being able to work with them.
Welcome to another edition of Maverick University. I'm your host, David Hallberg. Joining me today is Assistant Pastor Austin Merriott. Brother Merriott is a youth pastor at First Baptist Church of Dwight, Illinois, and is a Providence graduate. Thank you, Austin, for coming here. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some youth work, particularly youth activities. Obviously, there's more to the youth work than just putting on activities, but when I was a teenager, that was the highlight, right? I mean, that is what every teenager thinks about when they think of youth work. Any young man like, man, I want to go into youth work. All he's thinking about is, I want to put on a whole bunch of fun activities for the teenagers to enjoy. And although that is probably just the tip of the iceberg of any ministry job, but it is very memorable for the teenagers, and it's something that those that are going into the youth group really look forward to, just being a part of this group of fun friends that get to go out and have fun activities from time to time, led by a respected part of the church, their youth pastor. And so I want you to talk a little bit about maybe even your perspective when you were in youth group, and then transitioning to that youth pastor role. What did you learn? And then talk about where you are today, putting on youth activities and their purpose.
Yeah. So like Brother Hallberg said, my name's Austin Merriott, and I grew up here at Northwest. My childhood was Northwest Bible Baptist Church, and growing up, looking up to the youth group, you think of those different things that you just mentioned, and having that desire to be a part of the youth group. And then as our age, we actually went to school together, we're at the same grade, and as we transitioned into the youth group is when Brother Jay Reed came on as youth pastor, and shortly thereafter of us getting into the youth group. And so it was just a totally transformative time of our lives, but also of the youth group's life, if you will. And so just having some different activities that he brought to the table just was amazing. I mean, we had so much fun. All the different things, the bigger and better hunts, and just the different activities, scavenger hunts and video things and whatnot that we would do. And him bringing youth conference to the church and starting that with him, and working on the PSAs and all the different things that he would involve us with. And I think that was really the impactful part of my teenage years, is how much Brother Reed would include us in what he was doing, in projects that he had, and to the point of even just coming in during lunch and playing basketball with us, or taking us out for lunch, or going to play golf, or just different times that he would spend with us. And that created a bond with him that we would look up to, respect, listen to as he would preach and teach and different things. But also it gave us that excitement to see, as we would go into the activities, just what is he going to think of next? What's the next thing that's going to come to light? And he always just really played things up, and just we had a lot of fun. So having that as my background, having that as my childhood, coming from a great youth group that God really worked through, and just had some really neat things that had taken place during our time as teenagers. And so God, going into college, I really didn't know what God wanted for me to do. I knew that I wanted to serve. I had started working on staff here in the spring of 2002, and I knew that I wanted to serve in a church, but I just didn't know what God had. I wasn't really called to preach at the time, and I didn't have a direction. And so I started out with college. That's what my parents had counseled me to do, what preacher and my youth pastor had counseled me. And so I went to Providence and began getting instruction there. And as God led through different things throughout college, called me to preach and led me to that he wanted me to be an assistant pastor working with youth. So I was really excited about that, and graduated from college, worked here for several more years, and then we transitioned to Iowa to become a youth pastor. And so that transition, going to a church and being able to start working with youth, was just really an exciting time for us. We were pumped. And it was really an amazing experience for us while we were there in Iowa. We were at Twin Pines Baptist Church, Pastor Ken Koski, and he was a youth pastor for a long time before he became pastor. And so I was able to glean from him so much in how to deal with kids and how to work with kids and things that you can't learn in a classroom. And so one of those things was just the activities and working those through. And so I was able to take the things that I'd learned as a child, as a teenager from Brother Reed, and to take the things that he would teach me as being a youth pastor, and I'd done it for many, many years, and implement those things. And just, it was really neat to see the connection that we could make at activities. Many times, especially when you're dealing with like a bus teen or a teenager that maybe isn't part of the Christian school, maybe they're homeschooled or whatnot. A lot of times, the only time you see them is Sunday school, or the only times you see them is Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. You don't interact with them like you do a kid that's in the Christian school, or if you're working with the Christian school, you see them every single day. And so that activity is a time that you can get with them in a non-church service setting, if that makes sense. And you're able to take that time and, yes, spend time with them as a whole, but really what I would try to do is during activities is take the time and spend some one-on-one time. Maybe it might be as simple as we're playing softball and you're just standing in line waiting to bat, and just talking to them for a few moments and asking them how things are going and what's going on in their life, and try to make a connection with them, because that's really our goal as a youth worker, as a youth pastor. Our goal, obviously, we're an extension of the parents. We're not some Lord that everyone's supposed to look up to and worship. We're just an extension to help mom and dad hopefully see some young people that want to serve God with their life and find God's will for their life. And we're also an extension of the pastor. We're not there to overtake and usurp his authority. We're just there to be a blessing. And also our goal, especially just youth work in general, but in these activities, is also trying to always point back to finding God's will for these young people's lives. That's our ultimate goal. We want them to find God's will and do it. And that's what I've always told any young person that I've dealt with. Look, I have no idea what God wants for you. I have no idea if God wants you to be a pastor, missionary, evangelist, a plumber, architect. I don't know. But God has a will. He has a plan for you. And I want you to find it and do it, whatever it might be. Just know it's God's will and do it. And that really is kind of the whole purpose of youth work. And even the youth activities, as much fun as they are, and really the purpose of the fun behind an activity is to show these kids that, church isn't just sitting up in a service and not talking and listening and taking notes and saying amen. No, the Christian life is fun. Oh, yeah. The Christian life is exciting. The Christian life is an adventure, and pushing them to their limits, pushing them to do more than they've ever thought they could. And that's what these activities are for, and trying to get them involved with everything that we could do. And in Iowa, we had one activity a month, and we also had one, we called it an afterglow. And basically, it was a Sunday night activity, not super long, not super over the top, just kind of a time for the teenagers to fellowship. We'd have a snack, play some games, and just spend some time together one Sunday night a month. And that has really worked. I really have liked and enjoyed doing that, because our schedules get crazy. And sometimes, regrettably, we've had to cancel youth activities that we've done that are scheduled, but we try to not ever cancel an afterglow, because it's such a key element just to have those times where you can spend and talk to them and get to know them even more and have that one-on-one time. And so it's really important to do that, but just taking the time and utilizing the time that God's given you with those kids to help them see the wonderfulness. I know that's not a word, sorry, grammar teachers, but just the amazing thing that God's will, living God's will out in your life, is a wonderful thing. And getting them excited about that and having them have that burden and that desire.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you said I thought were really awesome. One was just the personal time you spend with the teenagers, and you're right. Some of the highlights of my teen years was when my youth pastor asked me, "Hey, we're doing a youth conference. I need to go to Menards, buy some stuff. Why don't you come with me and help me?" And I'm like, "Oh, cool." And then he took me to Quiznos afterward. I'm like, "Yes, free food too." But it was like that was a highlight, and that meant that, and to me, that meant that wow. He cares, and he thinks I'm, worth something. I may not be worth shooting. I couldn't, help him that much at Menards, or do anything. But at least he took me along for the ride a little bit, and that meant a lot to me. And then the other thing that you talked about was, taking advantage of the busy, of an after a Sunday evening service for an activity, because many times you try to do a Saturday activity or a weeknight activity, and people's schedules are just so busy, and there's so many moving parts to a ministry that it's hard to actually have everybody in one place at one time to get that stuff done. But a Sunday night service, everybody's already there, and if it's really brief and you can just do something real quick and fun, hey, it's a great thing to take advantage of.
And it's worked really well also to get those bus teens and your fringe teenagers, if you will, back to Sunday night.
It's true.
Because when they hear about how exciting it is, the other teenagers talk about how much fun it is, they want to come. And so they actually initiate the, "Hey, Mr. Bus Captain, Miss Bus Worker, could you pick me up and bring me back for Sunday night? I want to come to church because I want to go to the Afterglow." And so we've done that and had a lot of good success with that. And you know what? It makes for a long Sunday night because a lot of times you have to take those kids home. You can't expect the bus workers and bus captains to just take them home an hour after church. But that's good. And that also is another aspect of it that is really excellent because now you get to spend sometimes 20, 30, 40 minutes with that person in the car, just you, your wife, and the individual running them home, and you really can start talking to them and having that time that you get to spend with them. And so there's just so many aspects of it. One of the major events that I really like with youth, and just I've seen so much impact and influence, are your camps and conferences and things throughout the summer, and other events as well that happen. But those big events. Mm-hmm. And we always try to plan those. And I love it with Pastor Woodward. It's not, we don't have we're not just going to go, we put it out there, and if kids can come, they come. And so we don't, rotate, some churches, and that's fine if that's what they want to do, that some churches, they rotate, we're going to go to conference this year and camp next year. And, we just, this is what we're doing. We're going to go. And if you want to come, and try to help them raise the money and whatnot. But, summer camp and a youth conference and football camp is just such an important time in a young person's life. Obviously, the summer, we understand the philosophy where they're out of their normal schedule. They're outside of their rut, if you will, of what they normally do. And so we need to fill that time, that void that they have. We get that. But I just can't tell you how many times a youth conference or a summer camp has just made a massive impact. I remember one time in Iowa, we went to a summer camp, and just our young men in the youth group just got on fire. They just got lit at the camp. Pastor Dawson was preaching before he had passed away. This was quite a few years ago, and it was amazing. And so the next year, they put on. We had Vacation Bible School for the kids, and then we'd do a teen week. But basically was Vacation Bible School for teens. But that year was the off year. We weren't supposed to do it. And the teenage boys went to Pastor Krakowski and said, "Hey, can we do a teen week? We want to do it. And we'll pay for it. We'll do everything." And they did. They raised all the money, and they put it together. They had the speakers come in. They flew them in. They did everything. And God used that week just in an amazing way. Pastor Dawson came. Several others came and preached. And it was just amazing to see how God used that week. We had, if I remember correctly, it was 30 or 40 people that got saved through that week, and about half of those were church members. Wow. Pastor Dawson preached his message where he got saved as a youth pastor, and it's just his testimony is just absolutely unbelievable. And God just used that, and it was just an amazing week. And I'll never forget it. It was because those boys were at camp. And God used them. I mean, at camp, after I think it was the first or second night, God just really touched their hearts. And they came to me and said, "We want to get up at 5 a.m. and go down to the chapel and pray." And every morning at camp, we would go down and have a prayer meeting together, and we would stay up till midnight singing songs. And we literally would go out of the cabin because we were with other churches. They didn't want to hear us or whatnot. They wanted to go to sleep, and we were trying to be conscious of that. So we literally went to the guys' bathroom, and we're all sitting in there just singing.
Wow.
And it just was a special time that God just really used, and it all stemmed from an activity. It did. It stemmed from a summer camp, and so it's just I cannot stress enough the importance of that. And really, parents, I would implore you, get your kids to the activities. Put them, whatever it takes. Make it happen. Don't take light those things that your church puts together, because they are for a purpose. It's not just a time filler. It's not. God has used those things in a special mighty way. He's used them in my life. Obviously, you've heard He used them in David's life. And I can tell you, young person after young person, that God has used those times for good. And He has a purpose and a plan and a reason.
Yeah, it's amazing what can happen in a church when the youth are on fire. And when you have church members getting saved because of a youth activity, that's unbelievable.
You look at history, a lot of revivals stem from young people starting a prayer meeting and getting on fire, and God just taking that and running with it and doing some amazing and mighty things. Young people can light a church on fire. They really can. And it's exciting, it's fun, and we really enjoy being able to work with them.
How have you been able to help your young people as you plan activities? You want to try to be conscious of cost, and do anything, it's going to cost something, but obviously there's some bigger activities that are going to have bigger costs. You mentioned camps and conferences, and maybe even some activities that you put on locally at your church. Are there some fundraiser ideas or things that you've been able to help your teenagers with to raise funds so that they can participate in a lot of these things?
So we've done a couple different things. Most of the time, historically, most of the teenagers that we've worked with, a lot of them, they work jobs or their parents have helped them in different ways like that. But one of the things that we use, one of the things we really utilize for raising money, especially for bus teens and kids that there's just no way they could afford to come to a camp or conference, we have our teen auction. Mm-hmm. We do it every year, and it's always worked really well. The church always gets really behind it, and it's a lot of fun. We auction off all sorts of craziness. We auction off baked goods. We auction off services. We get local businesses to donate things. We have, I think it's Serve Pro is the company. They donate a duct cleaning. They've donated different things like that, and so people bid on that. Brother Mike Rippey in our church, he owns a limo service. We've auctioned off a limo ride. All these different things.
Sure.
But we also auction off the teenagers, and it's probably not the most politically correct thing in the world, and but these are willing teenagers. YouTube, don't get upset. And but we auction them off for time, and they don't get the money. It goes into the youth group account to help someone else. But they know that they are going to work for 4, 6, 7 hours in order to help so that another teenager can come to camp or be able to do that. And so it's really worked out nice that way. And we also utilize that money to try to offset some of the activities. We utilize those funds that come in to pay for like gas. So we don't charge the kids gas on every activity that we go on, because it just comes out of that account. And so that it's worked really well that way, and we've really enjoyed that. But just challenging the kids to get some work ethic and get out and shovel some snow. We have a generation today that just expects everything from their mom and dad, and it's not the way that it should be. And kids have money for what they want to have money for. I've learned that. I've been in youth work for goodness, almost 15 years now, and when they want it, they find a way to get the money, and they can buy that Xbox, they can buy those Jordans, they can buy what they want to buy. And so you just got to present to them that this activity is worth it, and help them understand the reason why, and that they need to be there. And if you're excited about it, they'll be excited about it. If you think it's not a big deal, they're going to think it's not a big deal, and they won't come. And so you got to really, it's all in how you portray it, and just pushing them to, hey, this is worth it, save up the money, and come to these events.
All right, well, I appreciate your time, Brother Austin. Tell us a little bit about activities, the philosophy of it. I know we didn't get down to nitty-gritty activity ideas, but maybe we can do that in the future. So appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
Check out our other YouTube videos on our channel, and make sure that you like this video and subscribe, and you can also subscribe on our audio-only platforms as well. And we thank you so much for joining us.